Hey, good evening, brothers and sisters. Coming back at you again with another video. We're gonna do part two now. The breakdown of Revelation chapter two. So let's jump right into it. I'm gonna pick up right where I left off at. If you have questions, I guess about the first part, you have to go back and look at the first part. I won't necessarily do a summary here. I'm just gonna start from part two and go on. Revelation 12 and 5. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So this is just the image of the child. This is just to prove that the child was Christ that we're talking about. And if you know that Christ was the child that they're talking about, and that Adumian, which was King Herod, was the one who actually was waiting to actually kill or consume the child Christ. So that is the nation of people that we're talking about there, which is Esau, Idumea, and Edom. They're all the same people. So it says, and the child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So this is just to help prove that. Acts 1 and 8 and 9. But you shall receive power, and after that, the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is come upon you, and you shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and all Judea, and in Samaria, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud receiveth him out of their sight. So this is an image of just him being taken up by the cloud, going up to the throne of his Father in heaven. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So they had a place prepared for her, a woman, which means that the woman, which is Jerusalem, which represents the nation of people, a place prepared for them that was going to nourish them and feed them. And it's further expounded upon also if you go into Revelation 12, verses 14, if you just fast forward. And to the woman were given two wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place. And the wilderness in the place is the place where she's going to be brought into as a result of slavery, where she is nourished for a time and time and a half from the face of the serpent. So when they say a time and time and a half, this is exactly what they talk about here. The same time frame they're talking about here, 2,303 score days. So in this time frame that we're looking at here, this is the time that we were doing slavery and captivity. So just to prove this point, because it says here in Deuteronomy 48, 28 and 48, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness. And our enemy is going to provide us with all those things that we need: thirst, hunger, and nakedness. And a lot of times they do it through subsistence, in terms of welfare, in terms of healthcare, funded programs. All of these things are given to nourish and actually keep us at the baseline, just the bottom, the bare things that we need. So we're going to be nourished for a period of time, but then we're going to come back to our strength and realize who we are as a people and go from there. That's when they talk about the valley of the shallow of bones in Ezekiel chapter 36 and in 37. When they're talking about that, that's exactly what they're talking about when they come back to life. So Revelation 12 and 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. So Michael and his angels fought. So when they say war in heaven, that don't mean that it was up in heaven. It's not in heaven. We're talking about in Esau's heaven, which is right here on earth. Because Esau's living in his heaven right now. He owns the fattest part of the earth. So he owns the majority of all the countries in the land and the earth right now. So this is his heaven right here on earth. So there's a war in his heaven right here on earth. But Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not. Neither was their place found anymore in heaven. So when they say in heaven anymore, they never made it to heaven. So if the dragon never made it to heaven, how is the dragon going to fight in heaven? The dragon had that on earth and this fight right here on earth. So this is just to prove this. So if you go to the Blue Letter Bible once again, and you look up war in heaven, when it says the war in heaven, it says that it perhaps the same meaning as the Greek word right here, which is G3735. So when you pull that up, it tells you that it says that it's a mountain. So it's the same thing as saying that it's an elevation, not necessarily heaven. It says through the idea of elevation in the sky. So they're talking about our mountains. But once again, it's just to prove that it's here on earth. As a matter of fact, hold on, let me go back real quick. Let me pull just to prove that again. So when it says, let me go to Lamentations 2:1. How hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven. So the daughter of Zion, once again, is comparing it to a woman, the daughter of Zion and Jerusalem, which is the same thing. Just say Zion and Jerusalem is still a woman. They're comparing them all to the same thing. It says, how did he and cast? I'm sorry. Let me go back. How hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven unto earth? So it said, cast down from heaven unto earth. The children of Israel weren't in heaven. So when it says that they were cast down on earth, it means that their rulership here on earth was cast down. That's what it means. From heaven unto earth, the beauty of Israel, and remembered not his footstool in the day of his anger. The Lord hath swallowed up all the inhabitants of Jacob, all the habitations of Jacob. So they're talking about all the lands of Jacob and all the places that Jacob had. He has swallowed it up, meaning that they have been cast down. Their rulership on this particular time in the earth has actually gone, and hath pitied them, and hath not pitied. He hath thrown down in his wrath the strongholds of the daughter of Judah. So when they say cast down from heaven, it means that they were cast down from their rulership, not necessarily coming down from heaven. So when they say war in heaven, it was not war in heaven. If at best it may have been a mountain, but it's happened here on earth. Revelation 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels. So now the dragon and his angels fought. So when they say the dragon and his angels, they're talking about Esau, Edom, Idumea, and all of their armies, the EU, NATO, all of their armies, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found anymore in heaven. So in other words, no more on earth was there found any more place for them anymore, because they were destroyed. Isaiah 34:4-6 kind of gives a better definition of it. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down. Hosts, whenever they say hosts, they mean armies, and all their armies shall fall down. This is the armies of Idumea and Esau and Edom. I showed you in the first video in part 1, how they were all the same people. As the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. So it's going to be a simple and an easy thing. The same way a leaf falls off a tree, and the same way a fig falls from a tree. They're just going to fall off, and they're going to be taken away and captured up, because the Lord is going to make short work of everything that's here on this earth. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. So when he say bathed in heaven, it means it's going to be bathed in earth, and it's going to be bathed down here. And look what it's going to be bathed with. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea. So once again, I told you it is the people of Idumea, which was King Herod. It was on the Romans. Idumea is the same people that established Rome and Rome and the Roman Empire, which later became the EU and Europe, which then also came the United States. So, which is the United States, which is known today as the modern day Babylon. And upon the people of my curse to judgment. So this is the people that God says he's going to dip his sword in and bathe it in heaven upon the people, Idumea, which is upon the people of his curse. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood, because he is coming in wrath and vengeance, and he's going to destroy them. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, and with the fat of the kidneys of the rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. So once again, I showed you before how this tied to Idumea, Esau, and Edom. and how they all were tied there. And now God is saying how he is going to destroy them when they make this war on heaven. I mean, this war in heaven, which is right here on earth. It's not in heaven. This is just a kind of visual pictation to kind of give you an idea of kind of what that might look like when that actually happens. Revelations 12 and 9. And the great dragon was cast out, and that old serpent called the devil. So once again, who was it, the great dragon that was waiting to take the child as he was born? It was an Idumean. And what did it say? That great dragon was cast out, and that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So when he said that Esau, Edom, and Idumean is the devil, this is where it comes from right here. Because that great red dragon that was cast out is called the devil. And it says, which deceiveth the whole world. Key point right there, which deceiveth the whole world. How did he deceive the whole world? We're going to get to that in a second. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with him, meaning that all his armies of people were cast out with him. 1 second. So, which deceiveth the whole world. So, how did he deceive the whole world? Right here from this image. This image is of Caesar Borgia, which is the son of Pope Alexander VI, who they painted as the image of Christ. So you see at the bottom of it says, the Christ the world knows. And this is Caesar Borgia. This is the image that they created. So when it says deceiveth the whole world, because they took a picture of the Pope, who was of which comes from Rome, because Rome was the Idumeans established the Roman church, right? And I showed you how King Herod was called King of Judea. So now they have taken over Christ's religions, his faith that he had set up. I won't say religion because he didn't give us religion; he gave us law, statutes, and commandments. They took over his faith and created religion. And based off of this religion, they gave us an image of a false Christ that had nothing to do with Christ. And Christ is nothing like this man. Matter of fact, this is an image of the Pope's son. Could you imagine a blasphemy of someone who's supposed to be the leader of the faith and creating an image of the living Christ to say that this is an image of him? And then you say that that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what he looks like, right? Okay. Well, let me give you this example. You got a husband or you got a girlfriend, whichever one of you falls into the husband or a wife, whichever one it falls into, or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or a son or a daughter, or a mom or a dad, either one you want to say. Now, let's say any one of those send you a message and say that I love you. I love you. I care so much about you, and you mean the world to me. And then send you a picture of somebody else that's not you. Would that bother you? Would that mean anything to you? Of course it will, because the image that they're talking to and who they're saying is you is not you. And you don't think that God is going to mind that? Let me show you, pull this up real quick in Exodus. Exodus 20 and 5. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them. Or let me go back even further. It says 20 and 4. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. So you're not supposed to make any graven image of anything that's supposed to be in the heaven, and you definitely can't make a false image of it. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. Why? Because he says, for I, the Lord, thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. So in other words, he says that he's a jealous God. So if he's a jealous God, you can't tell him how much you love him with an image of another person and say it don't matter. He's a jealous God. Of course it matters. ourselves, ourselves being who we are. It is going to bother us if somebody tells us how much they care for us and then send a picture of someone else that is not us. We're going to be like, who's this person? You're not talking to me, you're talking to that person. The same thing applies when you have this white image of Christ out there that does not match what the Bible says. 1 Corinthians 11, 3 and 4. Actually, I think that's 2 Corinthians. I think I got that wrong. Let me make sure. As soon as it came up there, I think I got that wrong. Let me make sure. I think it's 2 Corinthians. Yeah, 2 Corinthians 11, 3 and 4, not 1 Corinthians. So that's a correction. So it should be 2 Corinthians 11, 3 and 4. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety. So the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, with his smooth words, with his cunningness. So your minds shall be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. For if so somebody's come to you and preaches another Jesus. This is another Jesus. This is someone coming to you preaching another Jesus, not the one whom we have not preached, because the one they preach is based off of Revelations 1:14 and 15, and it looks nothing like this. Or if you receive another spirit, another spirit, guess what? That's a spirit of the Antichrist, not the spirit of Christ, the spirit of the Antichrist. Because Idumea and Edom and Esau are the people that God has forever indignation against. So if you're going to allow him to replace the living Christ and the living God, then what are we supposed to say about ourselves if we allow the people who are God's enemies and who he said that he's going to bring judgment upon to represent him? That is blasphemy at its height. Or or if you receive another spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel, because with a fake image has to come another gospel, and that's what they're giving us, another gospel which does not match the gospel of God. So that's how they deceiveth the whole world. If you ask anybody today what does Jesus Christ look like, who's Jesus Christ, they hold this picture up, they're going to say, this is Jesus Christ. That's how they deceive the whole world. You ask your children right now, who is Jesus Christ? They're going to point to this picture and say, this is Jesus Christ. That's why it matters. Or another gospel which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him. So in other words, when you get like I said, you get the fake image, you get a fake gospel to go along with it. So if someone comes to you and preach another Jesus, which we have not preached, so what's the Jesus that they preach? The Jesus they preach looks just like this person over here. Let's check it out. Revelations 1:14 and 15. His head and his hairs were white like wool. So let's make a comparison. Which one has hair that looks like wool and is white? Okay, strike one right here. Doesn't have the hair that looks like wool and it's not white. And his eyes were as a flame of fire. His eyes were as a flame of fire. Flame of fire, because in the book of Genesis, it says that his eyes are going to be red from drinking wine. So now, and it says, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. If you burn anything in a furnace, or in anything, you burn bread, you burn cheese, anything, what color does it get? It gets black. So he should be looking like this: hair that looks like white, like wool, eyes that look like a flaming furnace, and skin as if it burned in a furnace. So blue eyes, that's a check, that's an X, that's not correct. And on the skin is not correct based off of this right here, because it didn't look like it burned in a furnace. And it says, and his voice as of the sound of many waters, meaning he had a really loud voice. He can carry, when he spoke, it carried long distance of people. Remember, he gave sermons and stuff to thousands and thousands of people without a microphone. How do you do that? Because he had the voice of the sound of many waters, because it was really loud. Now, also to go along with that, you notice how he has laws, statutes, and commandments, but this person comes with a wooden cross, because he is coming with religion where God has given us his word. So Caesar Borgia deceiveth the whole world. So this is the the dragon that deceiveth the whole world right here, where God gave us law, statutes, and commandments. This is the Christ that God's world knows, and this is the Christ that the world knows. There's a difference between what the world knows and what God's world knows, because there's more than one world. Revelation 1:14 again. So it says his hair and his hairs were white like wool. So what is wool? This is what white woolly hair looks like. White woolly hair. Woolly hair, just like a sheep. Woolly. That's what it looks like. That's what we're talking about there. So this is a picture from the Russian icons, which is images that they have stored in their vaults that they finally release. And this is an image of what they have Jesus right here, that he's debating with the scribes and the Pharisees right here. And what color are all these people? Revelation 12 and 10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. Not of the fake Christ that was given to you, but the power of his Christ. You notice how they put that there? The power of his Christ, because he know that there was going to be another Christ out there. Somebody out there was faking, pretending to be a Christ. But he knows he said the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. So in other words, the accuser of our brethren day and night before God, he got a snitch that just running and telling everything that's going on. That's what it is, a snitch. That's what Esau, Edom, and Idumea are, telling God everything we got going on. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. So they overcame him by the blood of Christ and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. So they think about this. They loved not their lives unto death. So in other words, when it says in 1 John 2 and 15, love not the world nor the things of this world, because and if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So in other words, you can't love this world, so they love not their lives unto death. So let me pull up another precept to go along with that. Love not their life unto death. It's in Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 10 and 39. He that findeth his life shall lose it. So they love not their lives unto death. He that findeth his life shall lose it. And he that loses his life for my sake shall find it. So when you have everything that you're supposed to have or you think you're supposed to have in life and you find it, God said you're going to lose it. But when you have all that stuff and you lose all that stuff for God's sake, that's when you're going to find your life. That's when they say here, and they love not their lives unto death. Because what they have, they'll gladly give up because they know life with God is going to be more than these earthly possessions that can never compare to the things that Christ has prepared for us. He says, eyes have not seen or ears have not heard what God has in store for his saints. Revelations 3 and 21. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne. So, in other words, right here, we're talking about overcome. So we're going to harp on the people what it means to overcome and to overcame. So Revelations 2, 11, 17, and 16, we're just going to talk about overcome. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. So to overcome means you won't be hurt in the second death. What does it mean to overcome? That means you have the patience of the saint. That means that you have overcome. So let's go to Revelations 12 and 14. Revelation 14 and 12, I'm sorry. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keepeth the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus Christ. So that's the people that are overcome, that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus Christ. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit of the God the Spirit said unto the churches, to him that overcome will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth, saying he that receiveth. So the only person that's going to know this new name is you. So when he call you that new name, you're going to answer and not even know what it was, because only you going to know what that name is. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works until the end. See, it says it here, and keepeth my works. What do you think they mean by he keepeth my works? We could jump right back into James where he talk about faith without works is dead. Works is your performance of the law. And he that keepeth my works, he that keepeth my laws and perform my laws unto the end, to him will I give power over all the nations. Because in Revelations 22 and 14, it says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they might have the right to the tree of life and enter through the gates of the city. For without are dogs, sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. So, in other words, the people that overcome are those that keeps God's laws, statutes, and commandments, and the faith of Christ. What's that said again in Revelations 14 and 12. So now let's jump into this a little further. Wisdom of Solomon 15:4 and 5. For neither did the mischievous invention of men deceive us. So this is the saint saying, neither did the mischievous invention of men deceive us, nor an image. So this is the image we're talking about here, spotted with diverse colors and the painter's fruitless brush. So in other words, this fake image of the Christ out there, that's an example of what they're talking about here. It didn't deceive us. The sight whereof enticeth fools to lust after it, and so they desire the form of a dead image that hath no breath. So you praying to a dead image that have no breath, and you desiring after that thing. This is what we're talking about right here. You desiring after that thing right here. The Christ the world knows, the Christ God's world knows, because it's based off of his scriptures. James 1 and 27, just to show you that God never gave us religion. He gave us laws, statutes, and commandments. James 1 and 27, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. So now, if you notice, to visit the fatherless, that is a law. You can find that in Exodus 22 and 23. To say to visit the fatherless, that's a law. Unspotted from the world, 2 Corinthians 6 and 17 is a perfect example of a law, of a commandment that we're given to keep ourselves separated from the world. Let me put it up real quick so I can actually help prove it. 2 Corinthians 6 and 17. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, says the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. So in other words, you're supposed to separate yourself, keep yourself unspotted from the world. Let me pull up Exodus 22:22 real quick, just to prove that point as well. 22:22 and 23. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear thy cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. So, in other words, when it says that to visit the fatherless and the widows, this is what God is telling us right here. And if you don't do that, and if you afflict them, guess what? I'm going to kill you, and then your children are going to be fatherless. So God gave us law, statutes, and commandments. So this is his, when it says pure religion undefiled before God, it's his laws, statutes, and commandments. Deuteronomy 28:64 talks about you're going to have to serve guys that your fathers didn't even know. And they say even wood and stone. Wood and stone is a classic example of what they're giving us for this cross right here. So I just wanted to point that out. So now, Wisdom of Solomon 18, 7 and 8. So of thy people was accepted. This is important here. So of thy people was accepted. So they accepted both. Now you got to realize that they accepted two things: both the salvation of the righteous and the destruction of the enemies. So in other words, a lot of times people are totally fine with being saved by God, but they ain't cool with the destruction of the enemies. But look at what the saints have to do. They had to accept both of them: the salvation of the righteous, which means they're going to be saved, but also the destructions of the enemies. When the children of Israel were in Europe, and not in Europe, in Egypt, they had to accept the salvation that God gave them, while also the destruction of the enemies. Let's get into it and break it down. For wherewith thou didst punish our adversaries. So he did punish our adversaries by the saying thou didst glorify us. So in other words, by him choosing us and punishing our enemies is glorifying us. So that's what it means to be glorified, because we were chosen over someone else. So we should glory in that and not be sad about that. Whom thou hast called. For the righteous children of good men did sacrifice secretly. So what they're getting into now, we're talking about the Passover. This is the day that Jesus Christ came through and destroyed all the firstborn of the children of Egypt, all the firstborn of Egypt. And he's talking about all the way down from Pharaoh's children, all the way down to the least common man. And I'm going to prove it here that it was Christ. For the righteous children of good men did sacrifice secretly. So when we say sacrifice secretly, they killed the lamb and they sprinkled the blood upon the doorposts, and with one consent made a holy law. So now they have this holy convocation that they have to keep consistently every year, based off of the Passover, based off of this, that the saints should be like partakers of the same good and evil. The fathers now singing out the songs of praise. So in other words, when the enemies were being destroyed, the fathers were in their house singing out songs of praise. They were praising God as they was destroying their enemies. So don't you be anything different than what the forefathers were, because the forefathers understood that they had to accept the salvation of their righteousness as well as the destruction of the enemies. So you got to accept both. So while the enemies were being destroyed, guess what? The fathers, the saints, they were singing songs of praise. But on the other side, there sounded an ill according cry of the enemies, and a lamentable noise was carried abroad for children that were bewailed. So it's children being destroyed, and the fathers were celebrating. Why? Because God's ways are not our ways. We are just supposed to follow and be obedient, because obedience is better than sacrifice. Wisdom of Solomon, I got these numbers wrong, but it's 18 verse 11. The master and the servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. So in other words, the master and the servant all suffered the same thing. So they all together had innumerable dead with one kind of death. So all of them had innumerable death. So that means so many people you can't even count them. It was so many people dead you couldn't even count them. Neither were the living sufficient to bury them. So in other words, it was so many people dead that it was not enough people to bury all the people that were dead. For in one moment, the noblest offspring of them was destroyed. So God came through, Christ came through and destroyed all these people. And it was so many people that he destroyed that it was not even enough people to bury them, because there was so many people that died. And brought thine unfringed commandment as a sharp sword, and standing up filled all things with death. And it touched the heaven. So in other words, he filled up so many people with death. There's so many people dead that it almost touched the heaven. The bodies were piled up on top of each other. But it stood upon the earth. It was so much that it touched the heaven, but it stood upon the earth. Then, hold on. Did I leave out miss a verse? Hold on. Hold on. I left something out that I needed to be in there. Hold on. I'll pull this up real quick. Wisdom of Solomon. 18. 12. So I didn't put verse 15 in here. Let me pull it over here real quick so you can see it, so you don't have to just assume that I'm telling you the truth. So let's go to verse 15 right here. It says, Thine all, so let's start off. It says, Thine almighty word leaped down from heaven. We know it from John 1 and 1 that the word is Christ. Let me pull it up just so I can prove that real quick. John 1 and 1. In the beginning was the Word. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Word is and was with God. So now let's say right here and go down to verse 14. And the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So that's Christ they're talking about. So the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. So when it says that thine almighty word leaped down from heaven out of thy royal throne as a fierce man of war into the midst of a land of destruction and brought, now I can jump back to this right here because I already got it, and brought thine unfringed commandments as a sharp sword, and standing up filled all things with death. So Christ came down from heaven, leaped down from his throne from heaven, the word, it said it did, and he brought down his unfringed judgment upon these people. And he touched so many people and killed so many people that the bodies from the earth was touching the heavens. Then suddenly visions of horrible dreams troubled them sore, and terrors came upon them unlooked for. And one thrown here, and another one thrown there, half dead. So shewed the cause of his death. So in other words, it was bodies all over the place, half bodies chopped in half from God's word. He said his commandment that his is like a sword. So they were cut in half. They were all over the place. For the dreams that troubled them did foreshow this, lest they should perish, and not know why they were afflicted. Yea, the tasting of death toucheth the righteous also, and there was a destruction of the multitude in the wilderness. So God has anger and vigor for people that break his laws, statutes, and commandments, and that go against his own children. So, in other words, he'll destroy the enemies, but guess what he will also do? He will destroy us. Because it says, yeah, the tasting of death touched the righteous also. The righteous are the children of Israel when they left Egypt. And there was a destruction of the multitude in the wilderness, but the wrath endured not long. So, in other words, he killed them, but the wrath didn't endure long because Moses interceded for him. For then the blameless man, which is Moses, right here, Moses, made haste and stood forth to defend them, and bringing the shield of his proper ministry, even prayer and the propitiation of incense, set himself against the wrath, and so brought the calamity to an end, declaring that he was thy servant. So he stepped in before God as God was destroying the people and said, Lord, please have mercy on them, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So he overcame the destroyer, not with strength of body, nor force of arms, but with a word subdued him that punished, alleging the oaths and covenants made with the fathers. So then, therefore, he got forth the oaths and the covenants that came forth in terms of with the children of Israel from that day on. So that's when he received the 10 Commandments. For when the dead were not fallen down by heaps one upon another, standing between, he stayed the wrath and parted the way of to the living. So in other words, there's so many dead people that he killed, they had to part the way for the living for them to walk through it because he killed so many of them. So I'm just telling this to show you, God is a God of vengeance. He's a God of judgment. The same way he kill and destroy our enemies, he'll kill and destroy us if we ain't doing what's right according to his will. For in the long garment was the whole world. So when they say the long garment, they're talking about right here. So it says the whole world. So how could the whole world be in this garment? Because the whole world that he's talking about is the children of Israel. If you go to Exodus 28 and 2, it's going to talk about when the priests, when they have to dress their clothes and they have the long garments, it's going to talk about the four rows and the stones of the Father's engraving and the majesty upon the diadem of his head. So the four rows of stones that they're going to talk about here in Exodus 28 and 2 are all going to line up to show you that these are the stones. And guess what's on the diadem? The name of the diadem of his head. It's the name of the children of Israel. So when it says the whole world was in his garment, that's what they mean. So another scripture to help prove that, you can go to John 18 and 20. Jesus answered him, I spoke openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple. So how can he speak to the whole world, but he only taught in the synagogue and the temple? Because the world to God is Israel. That's why. Because it clearly speaks. So he says he ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, openly before the whole world. That is the world that he's talking about. The same thing they're talking about here. There's no way that a whole world gonna fit in your garment, but you realize that the stones that he have in his under his garment is the stones with the names of the children of Israel, which is his whole world. Unto these the destroyer gave place and was afraid of them. So unto these the destroyer gave place. So this is unto them, the whole world he gave place and was afraid of them. So who did he give place? Let's go to Deuteronomy 30 and 15 and 16, and I'm gonna jump back up to it. See, I've set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. Life and good, and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. So, in other words, this is showing you right here when it says that unto these the destroyer gave place. So he said gave place. It's the land that he gave us right here in the place right here. So he gave a place and was afraid of them, for it was enough that they only tasted of the wrath. So he knew that just them tasting of the wrath should have been enough to bring them to the fear of the Lord, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and understanding. And the fear of the Lord, if you go to the book of Sirach 19 and 17, let me make sure. Sirach, which is the Apocrypha or Ecclesiasticus, is 19 and 18. The fear of the Lord is the first step to be accepted of him, and wisdom obtaineth his love. So that's what God was doing in terms of setting up the fear for them. So when you say he placed you before you death and life right here today, choose. So you look, you got the graveyard, you can choose that way, or you can live a godly life and have life afterwards. Because salvation is going to come to those who keep his commandments and the faith of Christ. As it said in Revelation 14 and 12. Faith without works is dead. James says that show me your work. Oh, let me see. Show me your faith. Let me go pull it up real quick because I'm not quote it right. Yeah, a man may say, this is James 2 and 18. Yea, a man may say, thou hast faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. So, in other words, if you have a faith, it should be shown by your works. What are your works? The performance of the law. If you don't know what the law is, how are you going to know what sin is? Because without the law, you won't know what sin is. Same thing it says in Romans 7 and 7. I hope y'all enjoyed lesson 2. We'll get into lesson 3 next week. If you have any questions or comments or anything, just leave them and I'll respond back to them just like I always do. God bless.